57 to 61, all verses. Four
Okay,
verses.
all verses.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I only had it like 3 years ago. But one of these new ones. So, yeah.
I mean, it's really nice. You can always bring this like here for cards and so on. Yeah, because then otherwise they have to go on. It's really nice that the book of it's a melody.
Yeah, I'm just activates like an artist. Okay. But he makes a book, so
You can use the
it
German
was in there.
verse. You can use German verse.
So I guess it's one. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, 61.
Sundar Jagannath Dasa.
Ah, ich wusste, ich meine nicht.
Sundar Jagannath Dasa. Carlo Rodriguez.
Also drücken. Hinten. Hare Krishna. We're done. More done. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giri Varadhari Jaya Giri Varadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giri Varadhari Jaya Giri Varadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giri Varadhari Jaya Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Sat Shri Srimad Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Shishi Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai Shishi Gaura Nitai Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim yasam dato jayamutirayet nashtaprayeshva patreshu nityam bhagavati sevaya bhagavati uttama shloker bhaktir bhagavati naishtaki. Hare Krishna. So we continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, entitled The Characteristics of King Puranjana. Text number 57 to 61. And I will be reading the first 4 verses, and we will together read the last the text number 61, which is on the board. Kvachit pibantyam bibati madiran madavivala ashnantyam kvachit ashnati chakshatyam sahachaksiti kvachit gayati gayantam rudatyam rudati kvachit kvachit dasyantyam hasati chalpatyam anuchalpati kvachit tavati tavatyam tishtantyam anutishtati anushete shayana anushete shayanayam avaste kvachit asatim kvachit shrinoti shrinvatyam pashyantyam anupashyati kvachit chigrantyam sprishantyam sprishati kvachit. Okay. Text number 61. Kvachit cha shochatim chayam.
Kvachit cha shochatim chayam.
Kvachit cha shochatim chayam.
Kvachit cha shochatim chayam.
Anu shochati dinavat.
Anu shochati dinavat.
Anu shochati dinavat.
Anu shochati dinavat.
Anu rishyati rishyantyam.
Anu rishyati rishyantyam.
Anu rishyati rishyantyam.
Anu rishyati rishyantyam.
Muditam anumodate.
Muditam anumodate.
Muditam anumodate.
Muditam anumodate.
Kvachit cha shochatim chayam.
Kvachit cha shochatim chayam.
Anu shochati dinavat.
Anu shochati dinavat.
Anu rishyati rishyantyam.
Anu rishyati rishyantyam.
Muditam anumodate.
Muditam anumodate.
Kvachit cha shochatim chayam.
Kvachit cha shochatim chayam.
Anu shochati dinavat.
Anushochati dinavat.
Anurishyati rishyantya.
Anurishyati rishantyam.
Muditam anumodate.
Muditam anumodate.
Kvachicha shochatim jayam.
Kvachitcha shochatim chayam.
Anushochati dinavat.
Anushochati dinavat.
Anuhrishyati hrisyantyam.
Anurishyati hrisyantyam.
Muditam anumodate.
Muditam anumodate.
Kvachicha shochatim jayam.
Kvachitcha shochatim chayam.
Anushochati dinavat.
Anushochati dinayat.
Anurishyati hrisyantyam.
Rishyati risyantyam.
Muditam anumodate.
Muditam anumodate. Kvachitcha shochatim chayam. Anushochati dinavat. Anurishyati rishyantyam. Muditam anumodate. Kvachitcha shochatim chayam. Anushochati dinavat. Anurishyati rishyantyam.
Muditam anumodate.
Should we do whole word? Just last word. Last verse. Okay. Word-to-word translation of text 61. Okay. Kvachit cha. Sometimes also. Shochatim. When she was lamenting. Chayam. His wife. Anu. Following her. Shochati. He was also lamenting. Dinavat. Like a poor man. Anu. Following her. Rishyati. He used to enjoy. Rishyantyam. While she was feeling enjoyment. Muditam. When she was satisfied. Anu. Following her. Modate. He felt satisfaction. Now, translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Before I read the translation, I would like you to meditate on something, because this is kind of a repetitive meter. There's a lot of repetitions in this translation, and it's quite long. So, and it's explaining how the wife of the king is the intelligence, and as whatever the wife does, or the king is doing the same thing. So you can meditate by each of these actions how your intelligence is dictating, or your intelligence is dictating your actions. Otherwise it may be a little bit confusing or dry, and your mind might switch off. Okay, translation. When the queen drank liquor, King Puranjana also engaged in drinking. So if the intelligence decides I'm drinking liquor now, then the living entity is engaging in that action. So, and All of these activities follow now. When the queen dined, he used to dine with her. And when she chewed, King Puranjana used to chew along with her. When the queen sang, he also sang. Similarly, when the queen cried, he also cried. And when the queen laughed, he also laughed. When the queen talked loosely, he also talked loosely. And when the queen walked, the king walked behind her. When the queen would stand still, the king would also stand still. And when the queen would lie down in bed, he would also follow and lie down with her. When the queen sat, he would also sit. And when the queen heard something, he would follow her to hear the same thing. When the queen saw something, the king would also look at it. And when the queen smelled something, the king would follow her to smell the same thing. When the queen touched something, the king would also touch it. And when the dear queen was lamenting, the poor king also had to follow her in lamentation. In the same way, when the queen felt enjoyment, he also enjoyed. And when the queen was satisfied, the king also felt satisfaction. Okay. Purport. Special Prabhupada. The mind is the place where the self is situated. Sorry. And the mind is conducted by the intelligence. The living entity situated within the heart follows the intelligence. The intelligence is herein depicted as the queen. And the soul, under mental control, follows the material intelligence just as the king follows his wife. The conclusion is that material intelligence is the cause of bondage for the living entity. The point is that one has to take to spiritual intelligence to come out of this entanglement. In the life of Maharaj Ambarish, we find that the great Maharaj first engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. In this way, his intelligence became purified. Maharaj Ambarish used his other senses in the service of the Lord. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity in the temple nicely decorated with flowers. He engaged his senses of smell by smelling the flowers. And he engaged his legs by walking to the temple. His hands were engaged in cleansing the temple, and his ears were engaged in hearing about Krishna. His tongue was engaged in two ways. Guess? Yeah. In speaking about Krishna and in tasting prasad offered to the deity. Materialistic persons who are under the full control of material intelligence cannot perform all these activities. Thus, consciously or unconsciously, they become entangled by the dictations of material intelligence. This fact is summarized in the following verse. Please come back tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhestam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrachatam Sahakana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Kopesha Kopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Praschatadesha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dear devotees, please bless me that I can say something in accordance with Srila Prabhupada's teachings, in context with this verse. Hare Krishna. So, as I already mentioned, the living entity, totally under the control of the material mind, follows the dictations of the material intelligence. So we know the example that the senses are the chariot, the mind the reins of the horses, and the intelligence is the driver and the soul. Okay. And what is the chariot? Anyone else? Yeah. Chariot is the body.
Where's the anchor?
Is there a way to make this lower?
You can use this table.
Yeah.
This is too low.
Better. So I decided to. I cannot compete with Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu, but I thought I bring something along to make this a little bit more exciting. This is from Vrindavan, computerized eye testing, Raman Reddy Road. This is glasses. So, experiment. Do I look more intelligent? Hands up. Okay. Better like this? But I look more smart, like, no? Yes? Do you think I am smarter when I wear the glasses? So, anyway, I will wear these glasses. Srila Prabhupada is, in this purport, is referring to Ambarish Maharaj, how he used his transcendental intelligence to act in Krishna consciousness. And there are different examples given for the 9 processes of bhakti, but Ambarish Maharaj is said to be the example of someone who has implemented all of the processes in his life. Said that you can attain perfection in Krishna consciousness by focusing on any one of these processes. Hearing, chanting, can you? No, right. Remembering Krishna. Worshipping the deities, yeah. Surrender. Atmavedana.
Worship, speak, service.
Yeah, Padasevanam.
Prayer.
Prayers, yes. Sevanam, yes. There's Padasevanam and there's Dasyam. Complex there, the difference, but there's a difference. So Ambarish Maharaj was using his sense of seeing, the eyes, in seeing the deities in the temple, nicely decorated with flowers and jewelry, smelling the incense. He used his sense of smell. Well, it's not directly. This is not. It's just mentioning here how he's using his senses. He's smelling the flowers and the incense, then walking to the temple and offering prayers. He used to use his hands to cleanse the temple. So this is how we can use the hands. And touching sacred items, touching the lotus feet of the deities, if you have the great fortune to step behind the curtains. And also Tulsi, transcendental associate of Krishna. You can touch her lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. Hearing about Krishna, and this is where the process starts, with the hearing. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atmani Vedanam. There is a gradual progression usually, that we first hear about Krishna, and as we progress through these 9 stages, from Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, in the association of devotees, we hear more. Then we start to chant. Then we start to do service. Then we start to worship the deities, and so forth. And ultimately, full surrender. Who is full surrendered already? Here? Hands up. Okay. By engaging the senses in the service, Maharaj Ambarish purified his intelligence and developed spiritual consciousness, overcoming the influence of material intelligence, and attained liberation from birth and death. Material intelligence is also trained by, not just by knowledge, but also by our activities, by habits, by that we develop for our activities, by our surroundings. So, depending on just with what we surround us, with the association that we have, our intelligence will either progress towards spiritual intelligence or towards material intelligence. And it can take quite a long time in our calculation to progress from one side to the other. There is a story of a person who was very poor. He used to smoke cigarettes and that's how the story goes. And because he couldn't afford to buy them, he used to pick them up from the ground, the almost finished stubs, and squeeze out whatever little enjoyment there was left. But then somehow or other, by the arrangement of providence, he became very rich. He became a very wealthy man. And he was dressed in suit and tie, and became a very respectable person. But because of his past conditioning, he saw a cigarette on the ground, and he would pick it up. And this is just an example how, of of course, he was still in the material consciousness, but this is a material example. How past activities, these habits can be very deep-rooted. And also in the spiritual activities, sometimes we may be inattentive and we may act on the material platform, although our desire is already directed to Krishna. That's why Srila Prabhupada said that there are different categories of pure devotees. Pure devotee is one who is always absorbed, completely always immersed in thoughts of Krishna. Pure devotee is also one whose desire is directed to only serve Krishna. And there may still be a lot of anarthas. Srila Prabhupada was asked by one person, Prabhupada, I'm so fallen, I'm addicted to drinking liquor. What can I do? I cannot live in the temple. I cannot practice Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada said, no, you can practice, you can chant, and whenever you drink liquor, you think that this is the taste. This taste is coming from Krishna. I think we heard the other day that whatever little thing that is attractive in this world, be it the most gross thing, still that little spark, it's actually is coming from Krishna. So that's how the intelligence can be purified in different ways, in engaging externally, but also by contemplating the material, by contemplating the relationship between the objects and Krishna. Bhagavad Gita verse that is saying, Avachananti mamuta manusim dhanamashritam. Rest. The fools deride me when I appear in this material world, because that's what Krishna says, because we are conditioned to think that everything that is visible to our gross eyes must be material. But Krishna was actually visible even to the demons when he appeared. And most people didn't know that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But that doesn't mean that his body was made of gross matter. No, spiritual energy can transform. Anyway, diverting a little bit from this topic of the intelligence. So there are different terms actually related to this topic. Intelligence. What are the words actually used here in this chapter? For buddhi, right? So buddhi can be translated as wisdom also. Buddha means the wise, I guess. Then there's bodha, awakening, enlightenment. And there are other words which you may also know from scriptures, which are secondary to this, which are subservient to buddhi. There's viveka. Has anybody heard this term, viveka? Tattva viveka. What does it mean?
Distinguish?
Yes. Discrimination, ability to differentiate between truth and untruth, and what is real and what is unreal. Srila Prabhupada says that a person who is engrossed in this material world doesn't know what is to be done and what is not to be done. So there's famous scholar Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda, means taking pleasure in discrimination. So this discrimination is discrimination is very important actually in devotional service, but it is not the essence. So I don't know any devotees with the name Vivekananda because if you get too much involved there, then that's not very beneficial. Can you maybe share some examples of where this discrimination is required in devotional service, or where it is not required? Huh?
It is required when accepting things that are favorable and rejecting things unfavorable for your bhakti. So there you have to discriminate what is actually good for my spiritual life.
Yes. And where is it not required? One.
Maybe searching for something.
Yeah. Always?
I think it's difficult because not always because when other people are disturbing others
Mm.
and like hidden.
Hmm?
Hidden.
Hidden, yeah.
Yes,
Yes. The-
others in the devotional
exactly.
service, and we should see that otherwise.
Yeah. Very good. Jayananda Prabhu, disciple of Srila Prabhupada, was known as an example of this, that he used to only correct the devotee if it was really if it was interfering with the mission, it was disturbing other devotees. But otherwise, it's not our business to get involved. And also, Shastra recommend that the definition of a Brahmana, Brahmana is someone who is striving to go towards Brahman, ultimate reality, the highest truth. Doesn't mean that you have to be a Brahmavadi, but Brahminical consciousness is signified by the word Udara. Huh? Have you heard this? It means belly. So in Kali Yuga, sometimes this is taken that Brahmana needs to have a big belly. But there's another meaning to this word, is that Udara means to be very magnanimous, to be liberal. Not be liberal with your tongue and eating lots of prasadam, but be liberal with other living entities. But at the same time, a spiritual practitioner is very striving to be very strict with himself, herself, but very liberal with others. And on a practical note, one senior devotee told me that he shared a meditation that he has, that we should strive to be ready to do some sacrifices to austerities so that others don't have to do it. Like when as we participate in this Sankirtan mission, we are undergoing certain austerities in order to bring others closer to Krishna. And it's said that if somebody is favorable to the Sankirtan movement, which Sankirtan movement means Prabhupada's movement is, everyone who is in Prabhupada's movement is part of the Sankirtan movement. So if somebody becomes favorable to this process, he's getting the same benefit. So, of course, that may be more complex to analyze, well, how much benefit is he getting, and, well, anyways, we're not getting into the detail, but if we have this consciousness that, okay, if I'm able to do this, sacrifice, I'm doing this service every day, and other people are getting going to Krishna without doing this, we should feel satisfied. Devotee is paradukha dukhi and parasukha sukhi. He feels happiness when others feel happy, and he feels distress when others feel distress. Usually in the material world, it is the other way around, because there are limited resources. There is only one person who is in the center, that is me, speaking on behalf of everyone. and that means the more you have, the less others have. So therefore, even though it may not be a conscious decision, but actually you're taking pleasure in other people's distress. Generally, it is like that. The more you enjoy the others, more others have to struggle in the material world. Krishna consciousness, it is not like that. Even we are willing to take the other position, that we are willing to struggle, and if it's done properly, the struggle in Krishna consciousness is actually increasing the ecstasy. If it's unhealthy struggle, it throws us out of the path of bhakti. There is pragya, which is intelligence, also insight. Bhakti Pragyan Kesha is the name. Insight into bhakti. Vigyan, there's Bhakti Vigyan Goswami. He has science. Vigyan we sometimes say realized knowledge, but generally it's known as also as higher knowledge or science. So the science of bhakti, Bhakti Vigyan. Then Satya is reality. Satyam Tapa is one of those 30 qualities. Also one of the qualities that are essential for someone who is trying to become a Brahmana. Truthfulness, Satyam. Vidya is knowledge. Avidya, ignorance. Gyan is also knowledge and understanding, comprehension. Nyaya. Somebody know what Nyaya is? Okay. Was there any one of our acharyas who was into this? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Can you elaborate?
I just started
Mm-hmm.
before he took sannyas.
Yeah.
He was in my family.
Yes. Lord Chaitanya was a grammar teacher, And actually, there is one story where there was one guru, one scholar. He was the master of this particular science, Vedic science, and nobody else was able to teach this, but there was this one student who just memorized everything. But anyway, that's detail. There are quite a lot of examples in our scriptures where someone who was very intelligent. I mean, just to show that intelligence is not necessarily intelligence in the material sense is not a necessary a prerequisite. There are, for example, this Vanaras, the Hanuman's army. They're not directly said that they're not very intelligent, but they're kind of monkey humans, and they're serving Krishna in their capacity by fighting like monkeys, throwing rocks. And there is the story of Shabri that just came to my mind. Shabri was an old lady who was told she was a devotee of Lord Ram, and her guru passed away, and before his passing he instructed her to wait. She actually wanted to go with him, but the guru said, no, you're not ready, you wait here and Lord Ramachandra will appear and he will come to your house. And she accepted this instruction and just cleansed the house and decorated the house, put fragrance and prepared some food every single day for, I believe, 1,000 years. And finally, Lord Ramachandra actually appeared. And because she was very poor, she didn't actually have so much to offer to him. So she had some berries. There was this berry tree. Does anybody know what it was called? It's a particular fruit that is usually not eaten by humans. And the reason is that you cannot distinguish between the sour and the ripe fruits before you taste them. They look exactly the same, have the same texture, same color. But once you taste, the unripe fruit will taste very sour or bitter, and the ripe fruit is very sweet. So, in order to prevent Lord Ram from eating the sour fruits, she would taste every single berry and put the sour ones on the side and kept the sweet ones for Lord Ram. And when Lord Ram came with Lakshman, he saw this. He was aware. Maybe she was doing it there, or he saw the marks of her teeth. I don't know. But Lakshman said, "Hey, you cannot eat this. This is." But Ram accepted because he saw the devotion. So for us, it would not be possible to do this. Anybody would be able to do this, because we know the rules that you cannot taste anything that you offer to Krishna. She didn't even, take a spoon and like this. She actually tasted the berry. So this is what Queen Kunti says, that actually sometimes too much knowledge or too much intelligence can be an impediment. One reason, because it can make you proud. Other reason is also that it can prevent you from acting, from developing some spontaneous attraction to Krishna. As sadhakas, we have to act on the platform of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana Vaidi sadhana bhakti. Vaidi means with knowledge, huh?
Rules and regulations.
Yes, exactly, rules and regulations. Sadhana means to practice according to rules and regulations. Why is that important?
Because you don't know what is good and bad.
Yeah. Before we can act on the spontaneous platform, we first need to have some knowledge of what is actually pleasing to Krishna, and we learn this from senior devotees, from our spiritual master. And for example, with deity worship, there are certain rules, certain cleanliness standard, certain things that you put on the deities, as it is described in the scriptures. Krishna, of course, Krishna is, generally wearing a yellow dhoti, but and he always has the flute. He has a cow horn. Oh, finish past, right? Okay, finish now. I'll just finish with this point. So there are certain things prescribed, what you put on the deities, but then there is a lot of room for creativity, and that is where that's where you can